Oh,
We're back.
my legs are killing me, man.
What do you mean your legs are killing you?
That's a long drive, man.
Oh my God, here we go.
My hammies.
See, I got zero sympathy for you right now.
I know.
Zilch, zero, nada. But we are back. We are back in the same room. We're back in the same building. We're back in the same city. Welcome aboard, folks. Today is August 17th, 2021. Welcome aboard. We are Crushing Iron Podcast, and this is episode 504.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's been like, what? It feels like it's been 2 weeks since we've been in the same room together.
No, come on.
Man, it's time away from each other. Heart makes the heart grow fonder.
That's what you got to remember,
Or
man.
my memory go. But we appreciate you tuning in. It is a rainy, dreary, nasty day here on this Tuesday. It's gross, but you know what? We need it. We need this rain here in Chattanooga. It's been dry and hot. Hopefully, this allows us for some cooler weather leading up to races here going on the rest of the year. But I wanted to say first off, welcome back.
Oh, to me?
Yeah, welcome back.
Oh, thank you. I didn't know if you were talking to the listeners.
Yeah, welcome back to you too. But welcome back to you.
It's actually kind of nice to have it raining because it was so sunny and beautiful on the lakes up there the whole time.
This is the last podcast we're ever going to do together. No, I'm glad you had a good weekend. And you did say this, and I know we didn't get touched on it last week, but this is like one of the last big training weekends in Madison, Wisconsin, which is a city that you obviously are very fond of and you hold close to your heart. And I love it as well, even though I've only been there twice. Once to spectate, twice to spectate and once to race. It's a city I love very much as well. But you were there this past weekend with, what probably seemed like 500 other athletes in town training for the week, training from coming all over the place, not from us, but we had a contingent coming up there, but you said it was a busy weekend on course. It
was, yeah. We stopped. There was a lot of aid stations. A lot of the tri groups had aid stations out, and I do want to give a shout out to BBMC.
Oh yeah,
Blake.
Yeah,
Blake Becker.
Yeah, Blake Becker, I think.
Blake Becker's tri club, because they had tents all over the course with people volunteering, and they had everything you wanted, from water to Gatorade to goo to apple, whatever. It was just like loaded.
Nice.
They were super cool. And they're everywhere, and I saw a lot of their people out training. I mean, I think they had a camp going on.
He's a local massing as a former pro. Yeah.
So they had, we're giving, I like spread the love of triathlon. So I have nothing against them. It's like they had a mini transition set up, in that park across the way from where the transition is, or if you run around the lake, kind of there's another park over there where the bike goes under the tunnel or whatever. But we drove by there on the way back, and there had to be 100 bikes on those tri racks just sitting out there. It was pretty cool, and they just hooked us up, man. We didn't really abuse their aid stations because we weren't there for them. But one time we needed it, and they were just, here's ice, here's everything.
See,
and
that's how it should be.
I know, man.
One
There's so many
gigantic happy community, and that's just unfortunately not how it is with most tri clubs and other coaches. It's not very welcoming. It's not inclusive, it's exclusive, which is the opposite of how it should be. And that's the opposite of what we hope our podcast is. We hope it's inclusive, not
exactly.
Listen, there is absolutely zero things about Mike and I that are exclusive. We hopefully are inclusive. We appreciate you tuning in. If it's your first time listening, welcome. We know you have a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and podcasts in general, so we appreciate you giving us your time. We cover it all. We cover swim, bike, and run specific training. We cover race recaps, race previews. Have on the very, very, very occasional guest. For the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, they've been doing this for a very long time. We just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through personally, how our training's going. We both work with, and all of our coaches work with, hundreds of athletes from across the globe. So it's very easy to always kind of have a pulse of what's going on in the overall community, whether it's athletes training for next year already, athletes training for races that are coming up. We always kind of have a feel of what's going on. So we'll use them to kind of catapult us towards a specific topic for the day. Sometimes we even go into our Facebook group like we did last week and answer questions. And that, if you want to be part of that community, a lot of awesome people in there. You can go on Facebook and search Crushing Iron Group. If you want to be a part of that, answer one simple question. We'll let you right in. And that's it. We have no agenda. We have no sponsors. We have no ads. We just hope you take something positive from what we have to say. Don't copy paste it, make it your own. It's your life, it's your journey, it's your training. and don't be deterred from what you're doing unless you feel like it's, irresponsible or not healthy. But that's our only goal, to keep you happy and healthy. And that's, we've talked about that, I think, a lot in the last 2 or 3 podcasts, in terms of being happy and healthy. And you see posts on Facebook and in our closed groups specifically from athletes that are just kind of at their wits' end, and we had an athlete come in, or there was in town this weekend. We had a mini camp, and they were like, "Yeah, I'm just, I'm under 100 days out. I'm getting pretty close. Like, I'm just excited." And I was like, "That's almost verbatim what you had said on one of the previous podcasts in the last week or two. Is like, right now is if you're not excited about your training, and you can be dreading it to an extent because it is long and it is hot, and you're kind of getting to the end of your big block. If you're dreading everything that you do, then you peak too early, and not just physically peaked, but obviously mentally and emotionally peaked as well. It's a hard time of year to balance. And that's kind of I know we kind of seem like we're beating the dead horse here, but it's that time of year. And you combine just a normal year for most people, and then you add in then a lot of people. I mean, think about it, like it's 1 year that people feel this way. For just a year build. Some of these people have been training for this race for 2 years, 3 years. And that's a long, long, long time, right? That's why I tend to tell people, I mean, not that I'm a professional or anything, but it's like you see people like, yeah, we're going to have like a 2-year engagement. I'm like, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. Like something's going to happen. You're going to get disinterested. And that is the same thing that happens, I think, with when it comes to people training, it's a long time to keep your attention span, your focus, and the pressure and the motivation, the expectation to do things. And then, combine it with, school going back and the heat. It's a hard time of year. And I think that, anything and everything we can do to help mitigate that stress or help you kind of get back onto a path that's going to allow you to have a healthier end of the season and just healthier life in general is of the utmost importance right now.
Mm-hmm. We put training plans together, and, there's a lot of intervals and all these things, and to stay on top of it, stay healthy, stay fresh and all that. There's so many variables that come into play. I mean, your diet, your sleep, and we talk about it all the time, stress, and good stress is stress and all this kind of stuff. And just think about how almost perfectly every piece of that puzzle would have to fit together to maintain all these workouts. And the reason I'm saying this is because, I did ride the course with a bunch of people Saturday up in Madison, and we didn't lollygag, but we didn't go crush it, And I gotta say, we did 2 loops, and I certainly have never felt that good riding Madison. And but what occurred to me was how much of a difference 1 mile an hour can make in your psyche. Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't ideally like something maybe that I would want to do a race at. But my point is if I would have pushed that maybe like a mile an hour more, I might have been shelled. And it's just a weird, the effort piece is you talk about 80% or 70% or 85%, those kind of things, and how to be able to understand what that means. And I just think it's so important because that can really keep the fun in training if you can walk that line.
You have to, I mean, listen, I was just having this discussion with Logan, who's in our lounge.
He's in the lounge doing
absorbing the Wi-Fi. If you've crossed over a bridge, you probably inspected it. But we're talking about, pacing and Ironman. He's doing Ironman Chattanooga. A lot of people who are listening have their longest rate. And again, we'll talk about 70.3s and Ironman a lot this time of year because it's the majority of races that are happening. Obviously if you're doing something shorter, it's still applicable because it's still probably gonna be long for you. It's your biggest race. But, we were talking in the endless pool is that, hey, if you're, the level of effort it takes in swimming to drop down from a 145 to a 140, right? It takes a pretty big, extra gear in your giddy up to move down for most people to take a 5-second jump if you even have a different speed, right? Like most people have moving their arms slowly and then moving their arms frantically, right? Yeah. And then not going much faster. They're just getting more out of breath, right? Which is, just to say this quickly about swimming, but we're not going to make this a how to nuts like a swimming podcast, but swimming is like the opposite of cycling and running. Cycling and running, you want to go harder, you go harder, right? You move your legs faster, you move your body faster, you exert as much energy as possible. You're going to produce more power. You're going to move your legs faster. You're going to go faster. You're going to go further. Swimming is not that way, right? Yes, to an extent, you have to go faster to be faster, sure. But most athletes, it's the opposite. They move faster to go nowhere quickly. And that's
a good point.
That's happened. And so it's very counterintuitive. You're going to be strong with it. But anyway, we were talking about the amount of effort it takes to go and bump down from, a 145 to a 140, the level of effort that you're going to expend. And then the time savings over the course of a 2.4 mile swim might be 2 to 3 minutes, which is nothing.
I know.
Over the course of 140.6, right?
It's like
absolutely right. It's absolutely
have to be more tactful with it.
Nothing, right? In the scheme of things, it's a minute and a half quicker transition on both of them, and you're already mid. So it's all about, and again, like what you said, but it's very, very hard, I think, for people to not get swept up in the moment that is long course racing. In terms of, here's the thing: what you see right now isn't necessarily what you're going to get. Because what you really need to be focusing on is the last hour or two of your race. What are you going to get then? And that's something that we really drive home with our athletes leading up to big races, that if every decision you make from the time you put your goggles on and get in the water, you need to ask yourself, is this going to allow me to move as quickly as I possibly can the last 6 miles, 10 miles of the run? If the answer is no, then the answer is no. But most people get so swept up in the moment because it feels good right now, right? And so they burn their energy. Like you said, they get on course and they go, I told myself, though, I was going to average 17 miles an hour on this course today. I had to. That was my goal, and, I did it when I was, doing the pre-race ride or the camp on the course in Madison. I was averaging 17 miles an hour, Well, yeah, but you didn't run 26 off it. And you didn't swim 2.4 before it. And the truth of the matter is, it also could have been a perfect 65-degree, 70-degree day with no wind. And then you might hop into a day where it's 85, 90 with winds, and you're going to be fighting to keep the same miles per hour. Same thing goes to people who are so obsessed with the pace that they have on race day. I've got to be 10 minutes, right? Whether it's 60 degrees or 100 degrees, I've got to be 10 minutes. And the amount of energy it takes to go back and forth and yo-yo between those is significant. And so you have to be the best long course racers and the best long course racers on the planet know their body. They know the limits of their body. They know what to do with their body. They know how the conditions play into their effects on that day, what they race well in. And they know that it's not so much about what's happening now. It's what's more of a cause and effect. What I'm going to do now is going to affect how I'm going to be in 2 hours. But that takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of thinking. It doesn't give us that, the 2021, most popular feeling is instant gratification. I want to buy this right now. I want to feel this right now. I want to lose 10 pounds right now. I want to get faster right now. Like, everything has to be, you can basically do anything you want to with the push of a button. Like, that's it, and you're done. And I think it takes an enormous amount of patience and planning, and then obviously practicing that patience to be really, really, really effective at long course racing, because it's not about getting swept up in the first 130 miles. And that's a long time to deal with not getting swept up in your emotions and ego and competition and expectations, and then waiting and waiting and waiting until you get to the last 10 miles to finally pull the trigger, or the last 5 miles at 70.3. The amount of restraint that it takes people to do that is significant, and most people don't practice restraint at all, ever. They practice hammer it, hammer it, hammer it, now, gimme, pass on the bike. Let me tell you about the last 10 miles of run while I'm walking 17-minute miles, strolling through aid stations like I'm on a tourist at Disneyland.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. The idea of being patient in a daily workout is enough to be a challenge, but then you put together 140 miles and it's really, you have to pull the reins in maybe 50 or 100 times maybe. So it's one of my athletes just this weekend had a long run, and he said he got through, I think about 12 miles. And he said, and his pace was just dead on. And he said he felt so good and he felt great. And then he's like, he felt like he went a little too far maybe, and he decided he didn't want to take that. He wanted to get back faster. So he sped up for 1 mile. And while he was speeding up, the sun came out and all these things happened. So he's on a 13, 14 mile run by time. And he felt great through mile 12, and then he ran 1 mile harder than he should have, and he said he was
paying
wrecked.
The price. Yep, you're paying the price.
Think about that.
You got to pay the piper, man.
The patience, yeah. But it's just it's such a great little microcosm of what we're talking about, because even if that were Ironman, so now what do you do if you felt that great through mile 12 on the Ironman, and then all of a sudden you're 1 mile later you're ruined.
Well, listen, like it's a tough one to balance, but it's also like a recognition piece that I think most athletes need to have, in that a lot of times it's not your fitness isn't your biggest problem. It's your lack of execution that is your biggest problem. Because most people, like I would argue 60 to 70% of athletes, when they race, rarely ever on race day see their full amount of fitness come to fruition. From poor pacing or poor fueling or poor conditions. So if you think about the fact that all those kind of have to go right, like to see your best, your performance. Again, I was talking about this with Logan about like the Ironman Chattanooga run course, and like how, things to take. And because I'm still predicting it's going to be, seasonably appropriate and cool, is that we all know how September is. One weekend, it's going to be in the 60s, right? And you're going to see like run paces that are something you haven't seen since May, right? Because you've been training outside with high humidity, high dew point, high heat. And then all of a sudden you get that little, seasonal EPO, and you're running in like 60-degree temps with like, and you're flying. And then the next weekend, back to 95 again, right? And you're like, oh my God, I'm getting slower again. Like, here we go. It's one of those things where you have to, and then you take that into race. That's why it's so hard to see your full fitness. But most people just pace so horribly. Right? It's like everyone always says, it's my run. My run needs work. Like, well, you just rode like at 90% of threshold for your Ironman bike. Like, what you expect to run? Like, you're not going to run. It just takes a tremendous amount of patience to execute your day. And I think that's just one of those things. Again, like it's a piece of the pie that you have to practice. And like what you said about the athlete that ran 1 mile too hard, it's like, you got to pay the piper. You probably could have ran for another 45 minutes easy. Like we talked about this after you and I both did Ohio, is that, if you can run 13 miles hard and just and just be spent, you can for sure run 16, 17 miles easy, because from a stress and like a damage standpoint, you can do that. And, so like, something I like to do, whether I'm riding or especially when I'm running, is if I'm doing, say you're doing a 2-hour run, go out an hour and 5 and then try to get back in 55. But in order to do that, you have to treat the first 105 very easy, right? It's not about how fast you can go on the back end. It's about how slow you went to start. No, not slow. How appropriately fast you went to start off with. Like I think it's especially if you're trying to negative split the run, which everyone should, try and negative split long runs. That's just a great way to test yourself. It's like you leave from your house, you run for an hour, and then you come, and so you get to the hour point and think, I'm going to run for 2 more minutes, right? So it's an extra, a 4-minute return, and see if I can get back or get close to back. And so you're going to be 4 minutes faster on the return. But in order to have the confidence to do that and not blow up early, you have to pace what? You have to pace the front part, right? Same thing goes with rides. Like, when we used to ride the trace, it's straight shots. We'd want to, ride for 5 hours. Sometimes we'd go like, 2:35, go a little bit farther out. That way you got to kind of hoof it to get back and see what kind of time you make on the return. Those are just great little things you can do to kind of test yourself. But it's always a great thing and a great exercise to try and execute being faster at the end. Because it's not always about how fast you are late. It's about how well you paced and how patient you were to start. And most people just struggle immensely with pacing, especially on the run, especially coming out on the run. Like they just come out way too hot. They could learn this lesson every week in training and still literally never apply it to race day, because they do the same thing over and over and over again. So you just think about that. Like if you really truly want to see your full amount of fitness, and again, ask your friends, look around on whatever social media platform you use, listen to whatever podcast, read whatever interview. How many times have you ever read the quote, you know what, I started out too slow. I had way too much left from across the finish line. Like at those 6 miles, those last 6 miles of the marathon, they were too easy. Like I really should have gone. No one says that. Everyone says I either even split, like they ran appropriately hard the whole time, or they started off, if they're successful, or they went out way too hot and they exploded. And that's what they get for the day. And so it's just, but again, you have to have that patience in the part. And I think the most fascinating part of it is the only exciting part of being able to execute the great race is the finish line, because the percentage of time before that is usually the loneliest. If you think about like being on course, miles 20 to 24 are usually like out in the middle of nowhere. Like no one's out there, but it's where you're shining and you're passing people, versus the first 2 miles of the course coming out of T2, you're just blazing by people like, hey mom, hey dad, running 7-minute miles, passing 100 people, taking in all the glory. And then 10 miles later, you're like, I made a mistake. I came out way, way, way too hot. Same thing goes, for the bike. You see people here and there, but if you're able to pick it up the last 20 miles, you're not going to see anybody. Like the only people you're going to see are the people you're going to pass that went out way too hard in the first 60. It's just, you have to take into account the entire day and pacing the entire day and fueling the entire day. But again, it's the mental exhaustion part in the continual having to make decisions of restraining ourselves back second after second after second. Cyclist that passes you after cyclist that passes you after cyclist passes you, only to be like, hey, I'll see you on the run. It might be in 4 hours, right? But I'm going to see you. So to have that kind of restraint or patience, it's a skill that I think has to be acquired, because most people, especially now, it's all about now. Immediately, I want to get faster immediately. I'm going to train for an Ironman. My very first race, I'm going to do it in 6 weeks. I want to set a PR in the next 5 days. It's all about now. And so it's very much a learned skill, I think, that most people have to have.
Yeah. And not only patience, but it's such a confidence game too, because when you let people go, that's really hard. I'm not a huge group rider fan, and like this week, because a lot of times what'll happen is I'll go out, we'll get up at like ridiculous hours, and I'm not the most morning guy, so I wake up a little slow, and so that negative split mentality for me is good, because I've always been about letting your body kind of wake up, no matter if it's early in the morning or whenever it is, just let your systems kind of get into check. And but yeah, I'll go out on these rides and we start and like they drop me like off the get a lot of times these days, and people are always looking back. You go, I'm like, I'm good, I'll catch you.
And then you get irritated.
I do. I can see you. I'm just here doing my own thing, for a while.
Don't worry about me.
But the opposite side of that coin is when I have a bad swim, I get out and I'm like, damn it, I got to go get this bike now. I just go hammer. But that's in a race. But I'm warm. I'm a lot more, obviously, after a tough swim. And then I just sort of like try to make up time. So I've done it both ways. But I'm really, really focusing on, trying to hold it back out of the gate on all this stuff, because... And that's what I've really actually been testing a lot, is sort of this, all right, how slow can I go where it's not going to really disrupt my goal? And so I'm kind of playing around in those waters where I can be like, all right, well, this feels really good. I can do this all day. How long do I have to do this before I have to kind of get it going? And then, to get to my actual goal pace or whatever that may be. And those are the waters I'm playing in. It's kind of fun actually to sort of be like, oh, I just started out and I ran 11:20 mile, and I'm thinking, and it always goes back to Will Emery when that whole thing when he said he went in the first 3 miles at Louisville, he ran 9:30s, and the next 23 were like 7:30s.
7:30s, yeah, that's right.
So it's like if that guy that fast can run 9:30s, which with me would be about 11:30 or something. That's the thought that's in my mind. It's like, do I have that kind of confidence and that kind of patience to let go of speed up front when you can get it? Because I was thinking about that at Madison, on the stick. It's like fast kind of going out there. So it's really hard to hold back. And there is a part of me though that says you should take some of that, because you don't want to leave because you can, you know what I mean? Like, you don't want to leave all that on the table. What I think you need to pull back is when you get to the stick or the loop.
Yep.
That's when you need to really start going, okay, because you won't burn yourself out on that stick. Really,
it's too short.
It's too short, and there's a lot of downhill, faster kind of things.
Yeah.
So you should. Those are the games that you play, right? When you race, it's like you got to take the course too, whatever the course gives you. You don't want to just be, I'm not going to go over 17 here. You got to go 21 sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, if you got it, you got it. Like, you have to take advantage of it. And like, same people that you see, like, because running is the opposite. Like, you want to reserve yourself a little bit more in the uphill so you can really run and take the free speed in the downs. And you see so many people, like, crush the uphill running, and then they, like, walk the downhill, or they're, like, leaning back on the downhill because they're so out of breath on their heels. You're like, whoa, like, you're what are you doing? No, you're running it downhill. Let gravity do its job. Move your legs quickly and go. But they can't do that if they, burnt their biscuits on the uphill. I think a great exercise, and it's just more fun, right? To like I love descending workouts and negative split workouts and back end work on the bike. And like, it's, for the bike, I love doing a ride where, the first 2 or 3 hours are easy. And obviously if you're doing it by watts, especially because terrain is terrain, you can't really control it. It's all going to be different. Then you're averaging 180 watts for the first 3 hours, and you have 2 more hours of your ride. Now the goal is to increase, right, your overall average watts from 180 to 185, maybe even 190. Like to see that visually on whatever device you're having, and it feels stronger as the ride goes versus the opposite, right, being even or starting out really strong and then kind of going away and kind of fading. Like, to watch that happen, like, man, I'm getting really strong. Like, I've got that kind of fitness and that kind of patience to deliver it when it matters most. Like, the same thing goes for like taking it when you can take it. Passing people the first 30 to 40 miles, everyone's energy level is kind of the same, right? You're all getting started. You should at least be in 56 mile shape of the bike. Passing people on the last 20 miles, the difference in passing is significant because they're not probably barely slowing down. They're probably slowing down a lot versus you're picking up the pace quite a bit. So you're not just going to gain a minute on the first 56 miles. You're going to regain 10 minutes on the last 56 because they went out way too fast, and now they're just fading and fading and fading on what's going to be a hotter part of the day, a windier part of the day, and you're going to be fading. And then you have to, run, 26.2 when you're done. That's like, going back to, Madison, because you were just there and it's a race coming up, is that like, that is what you see the last 20 miles. You saw the same thing in Louisville. The courses are, in my opinion, very similar. The hills are different, but the course is similar. It's a stick. It's the stick of the lollipop is the flat part of the course. But people look at it on paper, they look at the the Ironman profile, right? And they think, oh man, the last like 10 to 20s, it's kind of down. If you look at it, it's pretty downhill.
Yep.
And then you go ride it and you think, man, it sure as hell doesn't feel downhill. because more oftentimes than not, you get a headwind on the way back in. See, and what you see like all over the course, and you saw this in Louisville when it used to be a race, you see it in Madison, is the last 20 miles, you see people shelled on their bike, expecting to get, a flat tail when they've got a headwind, and they'll see what they're doing. They're sitting up on their bike. They can't be in aero anymore. They're so exhausted. So they've got an aero helmet on, they got a disc and a deep front wheel, and they're sitting up on their bike, roasted for the last 20 miles, watching their average miles per hour go down, their watts go down. The same can be said for the run. Like, is it hard to negative split a marathon? 100%. Like, you're mostly going to see even splits to run your best race. But like, to start off at, like you said, 11s, 10s, 9s, whatever your ratio is, it's appropriate. And then have that for the first 3 to 4 miles, and then see it go from 10s to 9:58, 9:56, 9:53, 9:47. You're like, that's empowering, right? That's like, that gives you like that mental, a mental and emotional kind of jolt to get through whatever kind of pain is coming, because you feel like you're at least, the pain comes with winning, right? It comes with feeling good and doing something. It's like passing people, right? The more you pass people in the race, you're like, oh, I can keep doing this. Is great. If you're passing people, even if you're in pain, you're like, this is still fun. I'm still passing people. Versus being exhausted and being in pain and getting past, you're like, what's the point? I'm getting past anyway. I might as well kind of
what's the point? That's such a beautiful line.
People had that. That's what people think on race day. They're like, oh, I'll just walk it. Like people are already passing me. Like, what's the point of going through this pain? I'm already, my race already done. Same thing goes from like seeing their, bleeding minutes per mile or seconds, but going from, 950s to 957s, 10:20. You had to walk a mile, 11:20, and you're like, oh, this pain isn't even worth it anymore. That's like the winning to pain ratio that you have to also kind of navigate on race day, because it is such a long day. But like the races where I've been able to dig the most and go through the most pain, yes, are they my best races? But they're also because that ratio at the end was something that I can manage. It was like I was actually doing work and passing people versus getting past. Because the more you get past, it's kind of just like a psychological like punch to the gut. Like I don't mind at all getting past the first, if you're doing a full, I don't mind getting past the first 60 miles. Couldn't care less. On a 70.3, couldn't care less getting past the first 40 miles. Now, if I'm getting past the last 10 or 15, then it says more about me than it says about them. It says that I didn't pace it correctly. Same thing goes to run. If you're passing people, you don't even like need to look at your watch, because you already know I'm doing pretty good right now. If everyone else is walking and I'm passing people, things are going good. Yeah. And when things are going good, you can endure so much more pain and discomfort than you can when things are going, or when you paced inappropriately.
Mm. Yeah, and we were just talking about when up at Ohio when it got hot, and we both said that we felt like we were running. We just kept going exactly at the same effort and pace that we thought we had, but we kept looking at our watch and it kept dropping.
That's right.
And it's that thing where you get to mile 8 or 9 on that half, and I'm like, all right, I'm not looking at my watch. I'm just going to wait for it to buzz, and I'm going to see what I did. I'm like, I think I got it. I think I'm back on. I think I got my groove back here. And then you look, and it's 40 seconds slower mile than you thought, or a 30 second. That is a crazy that's when you kind of just want to, that you're running and then you just stop and start walking and go, damn it, this, or whatever. It's that kind of feeling where you just can't pull it out anymore for whatever reason. And I don't know. I mean, I suppose some kind of goo injection can kind of get it back for a mile or something like that. But
caffeine will help, right? Yeah. To me, that's why caffeine is so crucial. Like, especially later in race, it kind of keeps it's a drug, right? It helps keep you in the right direction. But it's like, it's so much more. That's the same. It's like, that's the same thing with life. When you love something and you like something, you're willing to work harder for it. Like, if you love your job, you're willing to work more. You're willing to do more. If you hate your job, what are you doing? Bare minimum, right? If it's a pain to do or show up to work or do whatever, you're gonna barely do what you're not gonna overachieve. You're not gonna do you're just gonna be, you're just gonna gotta go through the motions, just get this over with. And that's the mentality people have, right? And I think that's just one of those things. Like, if you want to be able to fight back, and again, like this was talking to Logan earlier on the couch, is like, dude, like, you just gotta kind of know that it's gonna suck. The last 10 miles of every race is going to suck. Like, especially for a full, it's just going to be really, really, really uncomfortable. But as long as you know that going in, and you can prepare yourself mentally for it to suck, you can do it. You can run it. In my opinion, if you can run 16, you can run 26. You just have to know that the last 10 miles are going to be incredibly uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And that's the other trick, is you only have to do it one time. Yeah. You shouldn't have to do it every weekend in training and feel like, I've just got to make it 10 more miles, because I got a 3.5 hour run on my training plan today. I got to make it through. It's just, you only have to do it once. But again, you just have to be fresh and crisp and paced it well. Because if you can do that, there's just so much, there's power in passing people. It's like, that's just the truth. Like, when you're winning, when you're passing, it's like you get this like endorphin dump of like, I think it numbs your pain, right? To see yourself succeeding, not to watch other people fail, but to see that your plan worked. You get this, like, you always say that, you get like I wonder what the performance percentage jump is from fans and spectators, right? You get this like outside assistance, literally like a home field advantage from like being out there. I have to think that there's a percentage increase in psychologically and what it does to you physically to be passing people versus getting passed. and what that does to your ability to perform on race day, and or the ratio or the difference in passing people the last 10 miles of the run and what it does for you versus what it does for you to pass people at mile 40 of the bike, and like what you get from, because to me in mile 40 you get really nothing in return. You're like, yeah, I'm just doing my deal. There goes another one, on your left, and then it's like, yeah, then you get passed on your left in the run. It's just kind of one of those. It's a boost, and so I think like if you're trying to set yourself up for success, and you want to worry about when passing or being passed matters most, it's when the last pass happens, and you can either be passed or you can be the passer. And it's psychologically, it's just you can float. It's a painful float, but if you're the one passing people, and I say this so many times on our longer distance like focused podcast, is like, if you can run the last 5 miles of 70.3 or the last half marathon of an Ironman, you're going to pass 500 to 800 people minimum, because everyone else is going to be walking. Everyone, so we talked about that Chattanooga camp, because that course, especially with how hot it usually is and how hilly it is, like if you can run that last half, no matter how slow your bike split is. We had a guy, this last year, because race came, but the year before that in Mount Tremblant, who it was a warmer day there. Sean McCauley, he ran from 33rd to 5th on the marathon portion of the Ironman. Got onto the podium from 33rd off the bike. He was 36 minutes behind 5th. That's only like a minute, 10 seconds difference. Like, think about how little of a difference that is when you think about dropping from a 9-minute mile to a 12-minute mile. You just gave up 3 entire minutes, right? Do that for 5 miles, you gave up 15. Think about the amount of extra power you have to put into a bike split to gain 15 minutes is significant. And that's just one thing that people just, again, fail to realize is it's never usually about how much time you're gaining. It's about how much time you're risking giving away the last hour to 2 hours of the race.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's not only just that minute or those 2 minutes or whatever, if you're competing with yourself and suddenly, just because I'm a easy example because I'm a 10-minute pace guy on all my Ironman, basically. Normally I go out that first half and I'll do 9:15s, and then it's everything I got to hold 11:15 on the back, and or whatever that, I think that equals 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it does it? Whatever.
Sure. Whatever. I mean, I'm here to support you,
not
to criticize you.
Whatever it is. But my point is like, if I had the patience to run that first loop in 9:50s maybe or something like that instead of 9:15s, that I think, because my goal is always like to be, sub 9 or whatever. Okay, yeah, whatever. But you know what I'm saying? What the patience it takes to, instead of going 9:15, 11:15, and instead of maybe going 9:50 to 10.
We're not showing off our math skills right now.
We're not at all. I don't know what I'm talking about. Well, the point is,
if
you start walking yourself, then you're giving up 5 minutes a mile or something like that too, versus give up a minute a mile and save 4 minutes.
Right. So, I mean, listen,
whatever. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. Like, from a math standpoint, if you lose 10 seconds per mile from walking the aid station, okay, your first 12 miles of doing that, you're only going to lose 2 minutes. That's nothing, right? If it's going to keep you on pace or from an energy standpoint, exerting it to where you don't have to drop from a 10 to a 13, like, because now you gave up a minute, right? It's just like, yeah, is it good to walk? I don't think so for most people, because it's so hard to get back going again. But when it's hot and it's about cooling yourself, and it's about, again, who can bleed the least amount of time over the course, because you're going to get slower. That's just a fact. The hotter it is, the longer it is. You're not going to get faster. It's about who slows down the least. That's what it's about. Listen, and you bring up a great point. Like, I'm not a huge advocate of walk running a marathon, especially if it's in like cooler temps. If it's hotter temps, that's a decision that's a calculated decision you make to not give up 10 minutes later. It's to give up 10 seconds right now. And that's a decision you have to be willing to make. Like, I made it at Ohio. I blew through the first aid station. I mean, blew through it. I probably got an eye drop full of hydration. Like I grabbed like 5 cups and I'm just going to cruise on through. And then mile 2, I was like, it's hot. I'm not like, it's hard to breathe. The humidity's got to be terrible. The dew point's got to be terrible. And I blew through the second aid station. I missed a cup, went like, I don't know, 4 to 5 feet past the aid station, stopped dead in my tracks, turned around, walked backward, like, well, not walked backwards, but walked back to the aid station, grabbed 2 cups of ice, and said out loud to the volunteer, looked at me, I said, today's not the day to skip out on your hydration. And I made that conscious, like, in-game decision to, like, I could lose 10 seconds right now, or I could find myself walking for 2 to 3 minutes at a time just to get my body cool to make it to the finish line. And while, you know, it wasn't my best race by any stretch, it was still only, I think, 5 or 6 minutes off my, like, overall PR like I've ever had. And I walked every aid station, like, and I still had a pretty good run, but did I lose a little bit of time in there? For sure. But I know that I would have lost 4 to 5 minutes by skipping the first 6, because at that point I'm at the point of no return. It's not about not about, you know, not losing. It's about how much am I going to lose. And so there's those in-game decisions you have to be willing to make, where you have to kind of think, you know, my overall pace goal, gone. My overall time goal, gone. What's the best I can do today under the conditions that I have, pacing myself and being as smart as I possibly can be? And that's just something you have to be happy with and okay with. And that's why you can't obsess about, like, a time or a miles per hour. It's like, I told this an athlete earlier, I said, training by miles per hour is where people's motivation goes to die, because you get so obsessed with pulling this miles per hour out of your ass that came from nowhere, that you obsess so much about having it that you, when you don't have it, you beat yourself into the ground. That every single, or it's the same person who thinks that every single time they do a long ride has to be faster than the last one, regardless of conditions, regardless of wind, regardless of fatigue. You know, last week is faster than last week. Last week faster than last week. Like, that's not how it works, and that's not how you should think it. It's not always going to be faster. And having those same things goes with running pace. So, you know, it has to be better than last week. It has to be this. I got to run this. Like, that's where people get burnt out and so frustrated with their expectations that they just stop. Like, working out becomes, like, it doesn't become fun anymore. It's about doing the best you can, and honestly, like, letting the chips fall where they may. Like, when I go work out now and again, like, I've been in the sport for a very, very long time. I've learned all these lessons. I've been there. You know, that's what you and I do. Like, we've been through this. We've done it. I literally get done with a run and I just look at my watch and think, okay, hit save. That's it. Like, I'm not like, oh, but, you know, compared to 9/22 of 2017,
right?
My heart rate was, you know, I'm just like, that's just kind of what today gave me, you know, like, I don't get, like, maximum fulfillment from it, nor do I get ultimate disappointment. It just kind of falls in, like, the, you know what, that's just kind of, you know, like what it is today. Moving on to the next one. Because I think that protects you in a positive way from having so many unrealistic expectations of things that you honestly, truly can't control.
Mm-hmm. I love that you said that, man. That's really what I think I'm doing now. I get this sort of, I don't really, it's more about how I feel about it. Or did I feel like something happened out there? Or you're looking at these little things, back to the ride at Wisconsin, we had a bunch of people up there, and I was just towards the end, you know, like the 3 big hills at the end of each loop.
Mm-hmm.
And on the last, the sisters, whatever,
triplets, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, the 3 bitches.
Yeah, so I think that's what they call them.
But I just tried to go up them hard on that last loop, and I felt strong on them, and I'm like, you know what? Something good is going on here. And like you said, I really, with the watch thing anymore, it's more of like, I'm always just kind of curious up there about elevation. You know, it's like, how much did I get today? Or how much did we ride? You know, it wasn't about speed or anything like that, because, you know, I mean, that's the thing, is you've got that whole, if you just go out there and blindly just ride that thing like you're racing, I don't know if that's like the long-term way to improve necessarily. I think you pick your moments and, you know, you work on things, right? Like, a lot of my weekend was trying to stay in aero a little bit more, for example, and just be comfortable there, or climb a little bit in maybe a little bit tougher gear than I might normally use in a race. Little things like that really kind of just, well, motivation didn't go to die, you know. And then I grew up cycling. I mountain biked my whole life, and I've always liked cycling, but it's a love-hate thing with me a lot these days. And so every ride I take, rule number one is don't kill your love of cycling.
Yeah, that's right. Seriously.
You know, and whatever that means.
Listen, like,
that can mean stopping at Quick Trip and, you know, getting a brownie.
Getting a payday.
And just talking to some people or something, you know?
Listen, most people gauge, especially if they're doing, you know, 70.3s or fulls and they're doing their big weeks, like, most people grade themselves way too prematurely. They grade themselves immediately from what their watch says or their data says, immediately following the workout. You know where you should start with? How you felt the next day. Because if you shell yourself and you're like, I crushed it today, I'm getting so much fat. You wake up the next day and you can't move and your legs are concrete and you can't carry on with the plan, then you did not have a good day. You smashed yourself, which is not a positive. Like, again, like that's something that, you know, I was talking to Logan about earlier. It's like right now, it's like, if you want a real true gauge of how your fitness, how your training is going, it's how quickly you recover. It's how quickly you bounce back. If your Monday through Wednesday workouts go to shit because you smash yourself on Saturday, Sunday, but you crushed it. You set a PR up this, you know, final climb. Like, so you put in 2 to lose 3. Do the math for me. You know, don't have us do it. You do it, but do the math. You know, it's like you continuously do that when it's about days and it's about consistency. This time is like, if you can increase volume and see yourself bouncing back, that's how I like to, especially as a coach, that's how I like to measure fitness. And as an athlete getting fitter, it's not just about the workout. It's about how they recovered the next day. Like, everyone can think they do great in a workout, because that's what people post on Facebook. They post their one workout. They probably didn't work out at all 3 days beforehand. They were probably shelled the 4 days after, but you saw their highlight. No, I'll take the person who did 7 consecutive days of hard work to then see what happened, because that's how you see. You've seen a person go out and do a 5-hour ride that's hard. The next morning they wake up and they do a hard run in the morning and an easy run in the evening. And then, you know, 90% of people, what do they do the next day? Day off, rest. Some people get up, run again the next day, get in a good swim. Like, that's called fitness. Like that's stringing together the chains, the links on the chain. They're going to be what you do on race day. That's how you tell if you're getting really, really, really fit. It's not just about the workout, it's about the amount of volume you're getting in consistently. That's all connected together within 12 hours or 3 hours or 24 hours. It's not about the smashing yourself and having to take 3 days off. Like that means something went wrong. It doesn't mean something went right. It means something went wrong. You're either getting sick or you went too hard and it was too much. It's nothing went right. You just overextend yourself to make it be right or feel right, but the result was something wrong.
And there's another thing, and I used to talk about it a lot with swimming. If I had, you know, whatever, a 3,800 meter swim and I got to 3,000, I'm like, do I have 800 more in me? Yeah, I do. Okay, I'm getting out. You know, but I mean, I'm not advocating that, but that was something that ran through my mind a lot this weekend too, out on that course, is that, you know, those moments when you kind of sit up and you're like, take a little break on the bike course and you get a little fuel and you're kind of going, okay. And then you're like, all right, let's go back at it. You kind of got to go back to work. And I kept thinking to myself, could I go back to work right here? I could, but I'm saving that for race day, you know, or not all my training. I just don't want to disrupt that enjoyment, or I know I could do it. It's like saddle pain for me. You know, could I go another 25, 30 miles? Yeah, I could. But, you know, again, I'll just kind of save that for race day, because it's not like I'm exhausted or anything like that, but it's just sort of this
you only
grinder.
Want to go through it one time.
It's the grinder
Yeah.
on race day. Yeah. And you know you got to grind, and it's not going to be pretty, and you got to stay in aero, and your back's going to hurt and your neck's going to hurt a little bit. I mean, you know, you can certainly get to points where that doesn't always have to happen. But for me, I don't ride enough. Most people probably don't in race environment or, you know, race efforts. And you got to, you know, just go through it a little bit on race day. And that's just how it is. And I don't like putting myself, I like working hard, but not I guess, in smaller, more manageable doses, because to me, it is like you're saying, it's just way more important to wake up the next day and feel good and not be absolutely shelled and wanting to quit the sport or something like that for the, you know, the first 30 minutes of the day.
No workout should be maxed out.
Yeah.
And that's where so many people find themselves week after week after week after week in big builds and big blocks. And that's what happens when they peak too early and they don't want to work out anymore, is because there's only so many maxed outs you got. Right? There's so many only 60-hour work weeks you got until you crash and have to take 2 weeks off of PTO because you're sick or you're burnt out. You want to go back to work anymore. So that's with all things in life. And most people don't figure that out until it's too late. You know, and they think, oh, how am I going to, I got to make it these last 4 miles. If the answer is, I don't know how, and then you also ask yourself, am I going to be able to work out tomorrow? Then you should stop. You know, if you can't think, but can I go back out tomorrow? No, it's all connected, right? And so that's how you should think. I got done with this long run after, you know, a 15-hour week, 16-hour week. I'm like, I could have gone 5 more miles. Perfect, right? Because you did all that under fatigue and you still feel like you could do 5 or 6 miles, then we're in good shape. Like, you shouldn't be, I barely made it to mile. I had to walk the last 10. I'm like, then something's wrong. Either, you know, the training is too much, your life stress is too high, your fueling and your recovery isn't, you know, where it should be. Something's not right. It shouldn't feel like that much of a stress to finish, whatever it is, right? It could be discomfort, like you said. You can only grind, like people's like, you know, every day is a grind. That sucks. Like, I can't imagine every day being a grind, okay? Because eventually it's going to wear out. It's going to be too much friction and you're going to be done. The only thing I want grinding every day is my coffee machine, okay? I don't want to be grinding through workouts and through life every single day. I want some days to feel smooth and effortless and happy and joyful and funny. If every day is grinding, then that's not really a life I want to be a part of. Same with working out. I want to get fulfillment, enjoyment. I want to feel fresh when I want to feel better. I want to smash myself every day or feel like I'm throwing up or feel like I can't move. Like, no thanks. Like, I don't, that's not how I want to stack days on top of days on top of days. I want to just kind of smoothly go through. You might have some bumps here, you might have little, you know, some valleys here, but for the most part, I just want to be kind of like, you know, smooth and cool as a cucumber.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, a lot of times how many times have you read this? Workout this, I feel beat up. I didn't sleep well the last couple nights or whatever. You know, you get up and, you know, that happens a lot. I think when you have a big ride or big group ride or something, and you try to go to bed, it's kind of an anxious feeling or something, you know, like a big day is waiting. And if you don't sleep well, if you haven't been sleeping well that week, and you got to really be careful. Those are the moments, the turning points of training that can really disrupt everything. And that's what I'm saying. It back to the beginning, how I just really believe this, that if you're going, what'd you say about training by miles per hour is
where motivation goes to die.
Yeah. And if you go out there and you're dead set on riding 18 miles an hour and you haven't slept well, or you're not eating the greatest or whatever the case may be, and you try to go 18, I mean, you have to be aware to say, okay, you know, it's okay to go 17 miles an hour today or something like that, or not pay attention to it, just go by feel and just see where it ends up. And I like that. You just shut the watch off and it's over. And it's done. It's
the equivalent of people who want to qualify for Boston and only go out and run that exact pace.
Yeah.
Not going to work out for you. Ever. Not going to work out for you. I got to average a 7:30 minute mile at Boston. You know what it's like to race a marathon? It sucks. It's excruciating. It's painful. So now you're going to go run every day at that pace? Good luck. That's how you're going to get injured. And again, that's where motivation goes to die, because it's not sustainable. You can't do it for a long period of time. And it's not how you're supposed to train anyway. We hope you liked our math. This has been the C26 Arithmetic podcast. But no, in all seriousness, we hope you enjoyed it. We know a lot of you are in the thick of your training, whether it's sprint, Olympic, 70.3s, fulls. It's the meat of the season. So we hope you took something positive from this podcast. If you haven't been and want to go back, visit us at our website, c26triathlon.com. It is definitely our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community, and also our ongoing club membership that helps you plan out the races you have for the rest of this year and also next year. You can click on the coaching tab, drop down 3, and we got it for you right there. You can also peruse the list of coaches that we have and see if any one of them might be a good fit for you and come be a part of our awesome and fantastic growing community of athletes from all over the globe. So click on that, check it out. If you have any questions about the camps, hub visits, swim analysis, you can always reach out to Summer. She's at c26operations@gmail.com. If you need anything from Mike, He is always reachable at crushingiron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me, I'm at c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, man. 504.com. See you.